Akira Toriyama is easily one of the most influential creators to have ever come out of Japan. His work on Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z alone is credited with popularizing anime and manga around the world and influencing countless creators both inside and outside of Japan. But here's something that you don't hear people talk about much when they talk about Akira Toriyama. He may have been the person who created the sound of somebody burying their face in big boobs. My name is Tony.Vega. I'm the founder of Japankyo.com, and here on the YouTube channel, I like to talk about funny, weird, obscure Japanese words and their history and a little bit of pop culture and media and all that kind of stuff. So if you're into that kind of thing, then make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. Drop me a comment. Let me know if you're into the content. I would love to know. Also, if you want to support what I do, you can head on over to the Patreon, sign up for as little as $1 a month, or do a one-time donation over at ko-fi.com/Japankyo. Links down below. I also do a podcast, Japan Station, links down below. So let's get into it. We're talking about pafupafu.
Pafupafu.
If you're a fan of Dragon Ball or Dragon Quest, the video game series, you have heard this word, pafupafu.
Pafupafu.
What does it mean and where did it come from? That's what we're going to be discussing today. So, pafupafu, when you look it up, basically the definition that you see the most often is the action of someone putting their face in between breasts. And the implication is that they are large breasts and that they may be kind of like squished on the person's face, or kind of like not hit, but like kind of alternatively or maybe like squeezed onto the person's face. And that's the sound is pafupafu. Pafupafu, pafupafu. Oh, I'm so sorry. But this is an actual word that I would venture to say most Japanese people, or at the very least, a very large amount of Japanese people across multiple generations are familiar with. Now, they probably don't use this on a daily basis, but this is a well-known word. It is an onomatopoeia. So again, it describes the sound of the breasts hitting that person's face, right? But according to one definition, actually, the word, and this is in Japanese, I looked this up in Japanese, but the word actually refers to the sound of soft and bouncy things, but implicitly and usually it is used to refer to, again, the action of a person and the face in between the breast and the puff, 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 puff. Where does this word come from, right? This is the interesting part of the story. This traces its origins back to Dragon Ball, the highly influential manga and anime by the famous and incredible Akira Toriyama. So, I'm talking about the original Dragon Ball though, right? Not Dragon Ball Z, the one with all the fighting and the, beams and the aliens and all that kind of stuff, and Frieza and all that. That comes much later. We're talking about the original Dragon Ball manga that started publication in November of 1984. So this is when Goku's a little kid, and it all starts with Bulma, the female character, showing up, discovering Dragon Ball. Well, she wanted to find the Dragon Balls to get a wish, right? And so she ends up meeting Goku in the first episode, and they go on an adventure. The manga started publication in 1984, and the first incident with pafupafu occurs that same year in 1984 in chapter 5. According to what I saw online, it was published in December of 1984, which is different from an English language source that said January. So there you go. Ulan, a character that looks kind of like a pig. He resembles a pig, but he can transform into mostly anything, it seems. In that scene, he asks Bulma, this female character, with the blue hair, what her bust size is. And he then kind of thinks, is like, oh, that's enough for pafupafu.
バストのサイズはいくつかな？
85!
85。いいなぁ。パフパフできるかな?
The next notable scene where this is used is in chapter 15. So it takes a couple months later, this chapter is published, and in this chapter, there's Master Roshi, the very famous pervert character that is responsible for a lot of the problematic humor in early Dragon Ball. So he puts out this fire, and apparently there was a promise that Bulma would let Master Roshi poke her boobs if he put out the fire and helped them out. And so he did. And so then after that happens, he says like, hey, time to deliver on your promise. And then she doesn't want to let him touch her boobs. So she convinces Ulan, that same, pig transforming character, to transform into her and let Master Roshi poke her boobs. And so he does that, but Ulan, again, in the shape of Bulma, wearing this bunny girl outfit, and again, Bulma's 16 years old, so this is like problematic humor, but it is what it is. Ulan says like, okay, yeah, here you go. You want to, do what you want to do. And then it's like, wait, are you satisfied with just that? How about I pafupafu? And interestingly, he explains what pafupafu is in the scene. If you watch the anime, like the explanation is there, which to me implies that this word was not common knowledge at the time, right? So he explains to Master Roshi what a pafupafu is, to put the face in between the boobs and then have him pafu, like, alternatively kind of smother him in a way, lightly hit him with the boobs. And that's, I think, one of the most famous pafupafu scenes, because it's the first kind of, notable scene. And then the word pafupafu comes up again throughout the show. I think it even comes up in Dragon Ball Z, although much, much less. All that like raunchy humor is toned down quite a bit, but it's not gone. So it's still there. Now, the Dragon Quest series of video games, this is a mainstay gag. The pafupafu gag happens in every numbered iteration of the Dragon Quest series, starting with Dragon Quest 1, which was released in May of 1986. So this is about a little over a year and a half from the first time pafupafu is used in the original Dragon Ball manga. Interestingly enough, Toriyama's editor is actually the guy who recruited Toriyama to become the character designer and monster designer for the Dragon Quest series of video games, the guy named Torishima. So how did the pafupafu thing come about initially? Well, a couple sources that I saw credit Toriyama with the creation of this term. And as I said, the fact that Ulan explains it, to me, at the very least, implies that this was not a common knowledge word. But one person that I saw on a Japanese message board said perhaps this word was already in use because, well, Toriyama did work for a salaryman for a little bit. Maybe at the time, he was going out drinking. Maybe he went to like a kyabakura, one of these hostess clubs kind of thing where you pay to drink with some girls, and then they might say like, hey, if you buy me a bottle of champagne, I'll pafu you. So maybe he picked this up somewhere in one of these bars or whatever. Perhaps. I don't know. We may never know. And unfortunately, Toriyama has passed on, so I can never track him down and interview him about this. But that is possible. Maybe this was a fairly minor word that was only used within, like a kyabakura or these kind of hostess clubs. Or maybe it was one specific person that was using this and he liked it so much that he used it in the manga. Totally possible. But he was the first to use it, at least as far as I can tell, and as far as the Japanese internet and English language internet seem to indicate, he was the first to use it in a public manner like this. And then Dragon Quest adopted it, using it in every single iteration, in the numbered iteration. A lot of Japanese people know it from Dragon Quest, and they don't realize that Dragon Ball was the first to use it. So it's just become a super, super well-known thing. Now, not everybody in Japan is aware what pafupafu means, and obviously, not everybody in the English language world knows what motorboat means, but it's still a very, very well-known and commonly understood word. While I was doing research for this video, I happened to come across an article for some new Dragon Ball t-shirts that were about to come out, I think in 2017 or 2018. They are inspired by Bulma, and one of them, one of them has puff, puff, coffee and cigarettes written on the chest. So it's a subtle nod to the whole pafupafu thing, but those who know, and I guess there's some pafupafu fans who picked this up for 5,000 yen back when this went on sale. If you're one of those pafupafu fans, let me know in the comments. I wouldn't recommend that you use it unless you're in a specific context where it's okay to do that, but just be aware that this actually exists and it's an actual word, and it's just one more of these interesting onomatopoeias that have these very specific meanings. And this is very much a characteristic of the Japanese language. And I absolutely love the fact that there are these super obscure, like, well, this word is not particularly obscure, but I mean like a very specific narrow use case for this sound effect. Pafu, pafu. And by the way, in Dragon Quest, I think aside from the first one, every single time it's like a fake out, right? It's like, oh, it's not boobs, it's something else, right? It's like a slime or something else. In the first one, they don't actually show you what happens. I think it just cuts to black. So, but the word pafupafu does appear in the text. And the first one was on the NES. So, 1986, a long time ago. But there you go. So Akira Toriyama is probably the man responsible for creating the word to describe the sound of somebody burying their face in some boobs. Sorry. I know this is kind of a lowbrow episode, but this is an actual word. So I love to get into these like obscure words. If you enjoy that, definitely make sure to subscribe. Drop me a comment. Have you ever heard the word pafupafu in real life? Have you noticed it in Dragon Ball and Dragon Quest? What's your favorite Dragon Quest pafupafu gag? Let me know in the comments. And by the way, I'm just going to say a little extra something for the patrons. That's going to be a little bonus that I'm going to upload only for the patrons. So that's more about Master Roshi and some stuff that he said throughout the show. So anyway, I'm going to do that. If you're into that, subscribe and join the Patreon, blah, 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 subscribe, blah, 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 subscribe, blah, 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 subscribe, pafu, pafu. See you in the next one.